Okay, all right.
The Persian Gulf War. It started in August 2nd, 1990 and ended in February 28th, 1991.
So the Persian Gulf War happened in the Persian Gulf.
Hold on. Can you explain where that's at so they have an idea?
All right, so it's in the Middle East by Iraq, and it's neighbored by Saudi Arabia.
There you go. Perfect. Thank you. Sorry.
For a quote, George W. Bush once said, "The war in Iraq is a rare opportunity to move toward a historic period of cooperation. Out of these troubled times, a new world order can emerge."
The Gulf War happened because Saddam Hussein had aggression towards Kuwait and wanted to take over their country. He wanted to take over the country because he considered it an artificial country that took over the coastline of Iraq.
The war was a result of Iraq being in debt from the Iran-Iraq War.
So a quote by Norman Schwarzkopf: "It doesn't take a hero to order men into battle. It takes a hero to be one of those men that goes into battle."
So for the historical context, feelings were hateful, attitudes were distressed, moods eager, and emotions mad.
Saddam Hussein was feeling eager to try to take over Kuwait since it was an easy target. He was feeling hatred towards anyone and everyone who tried to go against him. He was feeling distressed that someone might try to stop him, such as the UN.
These are important dates. Operation Desert Shield started, Battle of Desert Palace, Battle of Failaka, Desert Shield ended, Desert Storm was formed, Battle of Kafi, Battle of Phase 9 Bullet, the Battle of Medina Ridge, Battle of 73 Easting, Second World War started March 20th, 2003.
So the Battle of Dazan Palace was on August 2nd, 1990. It was an Iraqi victory, and it was the U.S. against Iraq.
The Battle of Norfolk took place February 27th, 1991. It was coalition versus Iraq, and it was a coalition victory. 21 were killed, 67 on the coalition were wounded, and 937 Iraqis were captured.
Battle of Kuwait International Airport took place February 27, 1991. It was an American versus Iraq battle, and the Americans won. It was a tank battle, and it resulted in 19 deaths and 48 injuries of U.S. soldiers, and heavy casualties and thousands captured on the Iraq side. We chose this one because it was the one my dad was in.
The Battle of Medina Ridge. It happened on February 27th, 1991. 2 were killed and 33 were wounded on the coalition side, and 839 Iraqis were captured.
So Battle of 73 Easting on February 26th, 27th, 1991. It was nicknamed the last great tank battle. Coalition versus Iraq, and coalition won. There were 6 people killed and 19 wounded on coalition side, 600 to 1,000 casualties on the Iraq side.
So the coalition leaders were, the coalition was comprised of a bunch of countries on the UN, but it was mainly led by the U.S. And the leaders for the U.S. were George H.W. Bush, Richard Cheney, Colin Powell, and Norman Schwarzkopf. For Egypt, it was Youssef Sabri Abu Talib, and for the UK, it was Margaret Thatcher.
George H.W. Bush was the current president of the United States at the time. Richard Cheney was an American politician along with Colin Powell. Norman Schwarzkopf was an American Army general.
These are the Iraqi leaders: Saddam Hussein, Salah Abu Muhammad, Abid Hamid Mohammed, Izzat Ibrahim al-Dori, Hussein Kamel al-Mahdi, Ali Hassan al-Mahiro.
So for our Iraqi leaders, Saddam Hussein was the former president of Iraq. Salah Abu Mahmoud, Iraqi general. And for Abid Hamid Mahmoud was former Iraqi military officer, and Hussein Gamal al-Majid was a political leader.
Charles Horner, the nuclear weapon is obsolete. I want to get rid of them all.
After that,
Why did you
ran
pick?
Iraq-
Why can I ask a question? Why did you pick that? Like, if you're gonna pick a quote, like explain to us why you picked that quote. Can you go back? Why did you guys pick that?
It was just a really deadly battle. It was, it involved so many countries because of all the oil in that area, and it was just really dangerous to have all the nuclear weapons and stuff.
Also, Charles Horner was in the war.
After the Iran-Iraq war, it was inconclusive, and Saddam Hussein was looking for new territory, and Iraq invaded Kuwait on August 2nd, 1990.
So for U.S. involvements, the coalition first gathered in Saudi Arabia to protect the oil. When Iraq didn't surrender, economic sanctions were put in place. Iraq didn't surrender then, and the U.S. began ground and airstrikes.
So for the first impact, there was a no-fly zone after the war over Iraq while Iraqi officials were making a treaty with the UN.
Saddam Hussein was given an ultimatum by George W. Bush when he became president, and he refused starting the Second Gulf War.
The Gulf War cost the Arabian country $620 billion, and it cost the coalition $61 billion and $52 million for the U.S.
Since the U.S. fought with Iraq against Iran, they were supplied with many military supplies and economic aid. So when Iraq invaded Kuwait, the coalition and the United States were fighting against their own technology and weapons.
So another big impact was the death tolls, and between 100,000 and 200,000 civilian casualties took place. Around 200 U.S. soldiers died and 467 were wounded, and around 100,000 Iraqi soldiers died and 300,000 were injured.
After the Gulf War, there was a depletion of uranium. After the war, there was also a highway of death that was formed. 200 tanks were lost by the Iraq side, and only 18 U.S. tanks were lost.
Iraq dumped 400 million U.S. gallons of crude oil into the Persian Gulf, and this caused the largest oil spill in history at that time.
A quote by Saddam Hussein: "Do not be attracted by easy paths, because the paths that make your feet bleed are the only way to get ahead in life." These are some stats.
Another quote by Tariq Aziz, he said, "If there's a solution that maintains Iraq's sovereignty, dignity, and legitimate rights and prevents aggression, we are ready."
Kuwait and Iraq were left in ruins. They were both bombed during the war.
Though the coalition won the war, Hussein was not forced from power. The Iraq Kurds and Shiites were brutally suppressed, and the coalition failed to support uprisings, which caused a no-fly zone.
Iraqi authorities were forced to carry out peace terms that they repeatedly tried to frustrate. These include United Nations weapon inspections. This resulted in the resumption of hostiles in 1998. Iraqi forces refused to admit to weapon inspections, exchanged fire with U.S. and British aircraft over the no-fly zone.
So another effect is when Iraqi weapon sites were blown up, they emitted a lot of sarin gas. And when soldiers were exposed to this, it created a lot of health issues. And this was coined as Gulf War syndrome. And these health issues included fatigue, muscle pain, cognitive problems, nausea, insomnia, rashes, and along with other things. Okay, so now for our veteran, Mark, he's going to talk to you about his service and about the Gulf War.
Thanks for having me. Yes, your dad, he served in the Gulf.
Yes.
One, it was a tank unit, an armored unit, is that correct?
Yeah, he was in only one of the battles.
Well, but still, that's awesome. That's awesome. I just talked to her about her dad a little bit. Thank you for having me. First of all, you'll find that, our General Swartkop did not want to end where he left off. He really wanted to move forward and continue while we had the upper hand in battle, but that didn't happen. And unfortunately, we went back in 2003, and that was the Iraq War, and we're still in Afghanistan in 2001. And I'll go over that a little bit, because I was in tail end, I was in Desert Storm, I was in finance, which is not the most exciting aspect, but we had a mission, and then I want to share what I did in Afghanistan from 03 to 06, and a little bit in between my career. Start with, I went in the Army October 28, 1974, and retired April 15, 2014. I ended up doing 40 years of military service. Never heard of, but I was blessed with the assignments that was given to me so I could stay in, even after I was injured in Afghanistan. During Desert Storm, I was assigned to the 138th Finance Support Unit. I was a paralegal, 27 Delta, with finance at Fort Benjamin Harrison. So I was assigned active Army with Fort Benjamin Harrison. And then the 138th Finance Support Unit completed mobilization exercise during the first week of March 1991. We conducted the exercise to update the unit's logistics records and alert procedures in the event of mobilization. At the same point, the coalition forces in Southwest Asia continued to reposition their equipment following their victory in Operation Desert Storm. I don't call it a victory. Lines in the Sand author does, and that is, excuse me, I want to make sure, is Charles W. Whitaker, Major General, the Indiana National Guard Adjutant General at the time. I still don't believe that we should have continued on, so we wouldn't be where we're at today. So much for politics. Some American units have already been returned to the United States in March of 1991. On 9 March 1991, Staff Duty Officer, Chief Warrant Officer 3, Blaine Parker, called the 138th, and Blaine Parker was my boss at Fort Harrison. And 15 March 91, the unit's mobilization day, its 86 soldiers reported to the Indiana National Guard headquarters at Stopfield, Indianapolis, for active duty processing. The 138th reported to the U.S. Army Finance and Accounting Office, which is housed in the Major General Emmett J. Bean Center, the largest building in the Army inventory. The building covers 14 acres of what used to be Fort Harrison, which was closed in 1995, but the Finance Center is still in operation today. I appreciate my notes. This was originally Building 1, but on May 7th, 1987, was dedicated and named in the honor of Major General retired Bean, the first commander of the Finance and Accounting Center. The 138th Finance Service Unit first stepped in the process of units soldiers into the active Army. The unit's finance detachment then commenced 3 days concentrated finance refresher training conducted by the U.S. Army Finance School. Simultaneously, the logistics and administrative section processed those actions necessary to feed, house, clothe, and pay the 138th soldiers. The command and operating section coordinated the command and control actions for deployment to include our office. The 138th mission was to support teams that were returning from Desert Storm and into the United States. And what we did was we were we had 8 Army posts in the United States to support the finance processing of soldiers returning from Saudi Arabia. We had 10 personnel at Fort Bragg, 5 at Fort Stewart, 10 at Fort Campbell, 22 at Fort Harrison, 10 at Fort Lewis, 10 at Fort Ord, 19 in San Francisco, and 1 at Fort Pickett. I was assigned to Camp Robinson, North Little Rock, Arkansas at the time. When the 138th soldiers arrived at deployed locations, they were quickly put to work because the volume of returning soldiers from Saudi Arabia was rapidly increasing. Our main objective was to process pay inquiries as rapidly as possible, cash disbursing, pay, travel pay, and finance out of processing National Guard and Army Reserves. Now you got to consider we didn't have laptops. Our computer that we had in the finance center was as big as this room. We had a big teletype in the center. We had the cards, the punch cards. So pay was not an easy process at all. We actually paid the soldiers cash. We didn't have checks, direct deposit. We actually paid out cash to those that are returning from overseas. It's amazing where we've been from 1991 to today with our computer systems. As of 1 July of 1991, the FSU 138th Finance Unit was deactivated. Several units were at that time. And then it became the Department of Finance and Accounting Service at Stout Field for the National Guard and Army Reserves. And then I was involved with still working at Fort Harrison at the Finance Center. I continued my service as a paralegal in finance. December '91, I graduated with a bachelor's degree in general studies at IU. In 1993, I was deployed to Honduras during Joint Task Force Bravo, where I was a foreign pay agent. May '97, I graduated Master's Social Work at IU. So even when I was in the Army, I still was able to continue my education, use my GI Bill, and end up having it all paid for. Now, 9/11 hit 2001. My retirement date was October 28th, 2001. Unfortunately, I was on stop loss, and from 03 to 06, I was deployed to Kandahar, Afghanistan as a foreign pay agent for the 25th Infantry Division and embedded training team member to support the 205th Afghanistan National Army. During these 3 deployments in Kandahar region, we paid Afghan National Army soldiers cash. They received 70 Afghan money a month, which came out $35 American money. Give you an idea, the cost of living is quite low. For example, you can get a 2-liter bottle of Zamzam orange soda for 25 cents. A new Toyota Corolla costs less than $5,000. And the process took 3 months to prepare to get the individuals paid. Now, how'd the process work? This is a sample sheet of a pay sheet. You got your soldiers on a pay sheet. When they come in, they see their picture, they see their name, and this is all generated out of Kabul Military Training Corps. Then what they do is they put their thumbprint when they got paid their 3,500 Afghanis. So it was 3,500 Afghanis, and it came out about $35 to $70 with the pay increases. They were able to get almost $70 a month by the time we're done. But that's the pay process of, and we had to be accountable for every dime that was with these sheets. Now, did we have a pay problem? We did. I want to share one of the pay problems we had. What happens, I had a soldier that came to the pay line. He told us he didn't get paid for 3 months. Well, you get stories. and through my interpreter, it was, he told me that, and I said, well, to my interpreter, tell him that I will go to KMTC, Kapul Military Training Corps, follow up on his pay sheets with what they have on record, and see where we're at, if he did in fact get paid. Found out later he did. This was in an area of Ghazni, out of the Kandahar region. The individual came in our pay room. It was just a mud hut out in the middle of nowhere, these outposts. And he opened fire on us. Unfortunately, a couple of my interpreters and my ANA counterpart was killed. We later found out he had a pay problem. What happened was they moved him out of Ghazni to different areas, outpost areas up in the mountain regions in Afghanistan, and unfortunately he wasn't paid. They kept moving him before pay, and we put a stop to it. Unfortunately, it caused a loss of life to change policy. That's a military way. So we were able to change the policy. Then the accountability was, for finance, was, okay, we're going to pay these individuals. If they lied to us and we find out, they're just not going to get paid for 3 months or 2 months, whatever the case was. But this is 3 months of pay. The individual's trying to support his family. He just, unfortunately, took out our staff. So when I came back with the pay sheets and everything for accountability, I had to turn all this in with money every month, and then when I cleared country, before I could clear country, I had to stay another 3 months to clear my finance before they let me go home. So, and I was a pay agent, like I said, 2003, 2006, and the reason why is I had 30-day leaves here and there, but I could not leave country because we didn't want to have a break in pay. So that's why I ended up doing 3 years. In Afghanistan, they have a holiday. It's called Ramadan, which is part of the Eid season. And Eid is, they're like our Christmas. Well, one time my interpreter was in celebration for Ramadan with his family in Kabul. I was still in Kandahar. So I flew in from Kandahar airfield from Uzbekistan with a new bag of money to pay. This is every month I did this. And when I got back to Kandahar, I got my little Ford Ranger and drove to an area of Camp Shirzai, where is my next payroll. Well, the gate guard was at Camp Shirzai. I did not have an interpreter. He said, "Pagent, Pagent." That's what he called me, is Pagent, but Pagent. And he'd do this, and I said, no, not today, no. Try to explain that to him. So he said something in Pashtun. I don't know exactly what he said, but I ended up, does anybody remember Fred Flintstone, the cartoon? The Yabba Dabba Doo? Well, I said to him, Yabba Dabba Doo, and drove off. Later that day, my commander, Richard Miller, came up to the gate, and they had the same problem I did, but they got through it. And as they were leaving, he said to them, the gate guard, the Afghan National Army gate guard, said to Colonel Miller and Colonel Gurley, "Yabba dabba do." The first thing came out of their mouth is Jaden. So this is a little humor. It's what we kept. It was how we survived. I'd like to go back a little bit. In '94, we received these medals. Anybody was in the, it didn't matter if we were stateside or overseas. It didn't matter. But we got the Kuwait Liberation Medal, and it was approved by the Kuwait Council of Ministry for award 5 classes, generally according to the rank of the recipients. So I was able to obtain one of these. And the official symbols of the colors are black symbolizes battlefields, white is for deeds, green is for metal, and the red for the Kuwait's enemies. And this is what we all received in 1994. A real simple medal, but it was quite honorable to receive these. And I'm sure your dad, I hope your dad still has his. Now, he would have gotten another award, another medal, that being that he was overseas, and I hope, hold on a second. I'm sorry, I had a picture of it. I hope it's in there. It was a beautiful medal. Watch, I can't find it now. Here it is. Your dad received one of these. And that is a Presidential Kuwait Liberation Medal. This is for those that were in battle, unlike myself in administration. I really want to thank you for letting me share. Unfortunately, it's like I wasn't in battle. I was administrative, but I was overseas. I did get injured in Afghanistan, I mentioned that, and I received this. It's the Liberation of Afghanistan Memorial Medal. And what this is I was injured. I was on my way to Kabul, from Kabul to Kandahar. Did everybody see this? Yeah. From Kabul to Kandahar. And IEDs were our worst enemy. If I was hit directly with my Ford Ranger, I wouldn't be here today. But a bus blew up in front of me in 06, and this was in March of 06. And when the bus exploded, the shrap from the bus, I was in traffic in a roundabout in Kabul. Now, Kabul is a capital city. You see your roundabouts, well, everybody follows the same route. In Afghanistan, there's no traffic laws. So everybody's running different locations. You got everything from donkey carts to sheep herding and taxis and military vehicles, and it's a mess. Well, a bus blew up, hit an ID, a bus blew up in front of me. I ended up getting injured with shrapnel and ended up with what is called traumatic brain injury, which led to a form of Parkinson. So that's where I'm at. But I wanted to go back. Joe Biden has put a policy out, wrote a book called Burn Pit Poisoning. Yep. And that's where we were in Afghanistan breathing items that are chemical weapons were being burned, and dust storms. Well, the same happened with when the oil drills were burned in Kuwait area. As the Iraqs were retreating, they burned set the oil wells on fire. Well, that black smoke and the dust and all that got into our lungs. When I came home, I was suffering from that as well. So there is a program called Burn Pit 360, and it is recognized now by the VA hospital as part of a form of applying for disability and treatment, and they are recognizing it. And it took Joe Biden to do it. So get your dad to the VA hospital with the documentation. It was overseas, his DD-214, and get him apply for disability later on treatment, because it's important. It's real important. I wanted to pass that on. What I do currently, I work with the VA hospital as a volunteer, and I am one of the mentors of a new program called Veterans Court of Allen County Circuit Court. And what we're doing is those with PTSD, traumatic brain injury, and unfortunately goes to substance use. And what we're doing is we're constantly working with these individuals that are placed on probation and making sure as mentors that they stay straight and narrow so they don't have to go to prison. They served our country. Now they don't have to go to prison if they complete this program within 1 to 2 years. So it's a great program, and it's a new startup program, and I'm blessed to be one of the mentors for that.
That's awesome.
That's all I have. Thank you for having me.
Now, do you guys have, hold on, do you guys have any questions? Do you have questions you'd like to ask? I have a couple.
Yes, sir.
So as administration, okay, so when you're in administration in the military, what do you guys do, basic training, so forth, to get yourself to the point where you can be deployed and then do finances overseas?
When you're assigned to your position, your office, like I was in finance, they send you, when I was sent to a school before I went to Honduras in '93, they sent me to a foreign page at school.
Oh.
That was in my record. So that's why I ended up doing what I did in Afghanistan, 03 to 06. It's whatever training you have, wherever they need you, that's what you end up doing. And being retired, at my retirement dinner, they asked me at the dinner, the commander asked me, what would I change? And I said, travel agents.
Tough to get back and forth.
Warped humor, but
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
so
sorry, I
then,
didn't
so
mean
then
to
your
share.
position, within the military, were you stationed on bases too? Because you said you were in huts in different locations.
Yeah,
like,
I was. I ended up Germany, Stuttgart, Germany.
Okay.
I ended up Fort Riley, Fort Knox. I had an opportunity to be in Freeport, Bahamas for 6 months, working with their National Guard on doing the new pay system that was computerized, and they're part of that system. So I had to go and train the Bahamian
how did?
National Guard, and
That's
that was great. That
Yeah,
was great.
Because I don't think you guys understand what he would have to do. Because a lot of times in the military, when you go overseas and you're deployed, you have informants, you have people of that country sometimes either working for you or actually they're military people right next to our own troops, and they have to get paid just like everybody else. So a lot of times, like even my friend Mike, who was at West Point, he went to West Point and then was over in Iraq during Iraqi freedom, and so they would have to hand out money to informants a lot of times, but you had to document every single piece of, either foreign coin or our currency that you'd have to give out to people. So is that some of the things that you would do? Is
I did. We had as FOO, it's called FOO agents, and it's a financial operations, outreach operations is what FOO is, finance outreach operation. And what we did was, let's say in a battle situation or in a situation where we hit a cow with your car, you hit a cow, then the elders would come to our post and say, hey, I'm here to collect for my lost cow, and actually bring the carcass.
really?
And, yeah,
Oh my
bring the
God.
carcass on a cart down to our office at finance office at Camp Shirzai, and from the hills, and it's amazing. And then we assess the cow and give them money for the cow.
Really?
Yeah, because of the loss
Yeah.
or offense, or and then they try to come and do claims, but they have to show some type of evidence for us to pay for that claim. And to keep them honest.
So that would be anything from like property damage to any of that?
Anything that
Okay.
we do is now active war.
Yeah.
If we're getting shot at and we take mortars and knock out the building, no, we're not.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a different situation. But if it's an accidental situation, like I said, their livestock, that's their life.
Yeah.
And then the northern region, which I was never in, SS Sharif, But their main crop, unfortunately, was poppies, and and that's why now heroin is back being an active substance here. Unfortunately, an illegal substance here because of what's being brought back from Afghanistan. Not so much military. But
Yeah.
you have KBR, which is Kellogg Brown and Roots, civilian staff. Well, unfortunately, some of that's gone back or getting through different channels with other, we had people from Korea. We had soldiers from Korea under NATO situation, NATO program. Korea, Germany, France. We also had British and Holland and also was there.
Yeah.
So we don't know. We don't know how, but we know that once we got there, it started accumulating, and unfortunately, it's such a pure form of heroin that it did cause a lot of, unfortunately, ODs here.
Yeah.
Not to get in the negative side, but, it's reality. It's unfortunate where that came,
What was the, for these guys, what was the geography difference between Iraq and Afghanistan?
I never was in Iraq.
Okay.
Afghanistan was in the southern region. During the day, it's 120, 140 degrees. At night, it was 90 degrees. It was a desert form. It was like sitting your head in an oven and breathing. It took a while to get used to it, and then you had all that gear you had to wear was required. It was miserable.
Yeah.
And we got bottled water, but we drank that. It was like hot water. Nothing, living with the Afghan National Army, we ate, slept with them, being the embedded training team. We were assigned to, like I said, the 205th Afghan National Army. I wasn't able, other than go get the finances, I was able, and that's once